We'll go ahead and start this week's Sun Belt Conference Coaches Media Teleconference. Would like to thank everyone for joining us again here today. As a reminder to our members of the media, it is star one to get in the queue to ask questions. Again, star one to get in the queue to ask questions. We are now joined with Shawn Clark, the head coach of App State. If you have a question for Coach, please dial star one to get in the queue. Coach, while we're waiting for that, would you mind starting us off with an opening statement?
Excited to get the season started and bringing a quality opponent like Charlotte into the Rock this Saturday. We have a ton of respect for those guys down off the mountain, and Will has those guys playing at a high level right now. So we have a work cut out for us, and we're super excited.
Thank you, Coach. Our first questions come from David Scott with the Charlotte Observer. Please go ahead, David.
Hey, Shawn, how are you?
Great. How you doing, David?
I am fine. Hey, Will has said that he's not going to consider the App State-Charlotte a rivalry until Charlotte wins the game. How do you feel about that? How would you classify the rivalry, and do you agree with that?
Well, I think it's great for college football. And it's two teams that are located an hour and a half away from each other with two great fan bases. And we've only played each other 2 times, and both games were sold out. We set the largest attendance record ever at their place 2 years ago, and this past year they played up here in Boone and had a sold-out crowd. So rivalry, not rivalry, I think it's great for college football, and I hope something will continue for a long time.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, David. Our next questions come from Steve Baer with the Watauga Democrat-Gazette. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Can you talk a little bit about Corey Sutton leaving or leaving out this season? What does that do to your depth, and do you think he will be back next year?
Again, Corey decided to opt out for the 2020 season. Have a lot of respect for Corey. We wish him well, but other than that, we're going to focus on the guys we have here.
Did he leave any indication whether he'd come back?
We talked about it, and we're in constant communication, and I have a lot of respect for Corey. We love him like a son, and again, he felt it was best for him, and we're going to support him 100%.
What does this do as far as the depth chart? You've still got a lot of seniors coming back.
We're in a perfect spot right now, and we knew he wasn't ready for the first 2 games, so we prepared like he wasn't going to be here. And with his decision, we've moved on, and we're preparing for the season.
You like your receivers situation going into
I do.
Saturday?
I do. We're at full speed right now, and we have a lot of experience there with Jalen Virgil and Thomas Hennigan and Malik Williams, and a lot of guys have stepped up, some young guys, the Christian Wells of the world, and Deshaun Davis, and so we're right where we need to be, and we just have to get to Saturday.
They obviously have a lot of experience also with Zach at quarterback. Just kind of talk about how they've worked together over the past 3-4 years.
I think it's a great combination. And again, we have a senior leader like Zach running your program, and again, those guys have thrown a lot of balls to each other over the last 3 or 4 years. And again, we just had to play App State football this week to be successful, and something we look forward to.
You also are losing your top runner from last year, but you also seem fairly deep at running back. Can you kind of address the running game and your depth there?
Yeah, I think it's a pick 'em who's going to start the game. Marcus Williams Jr. has had an incredible camp, and so has Cam Peoples. And again, I think we have a great stable of running backs, and when you have those guys and you can rotate those guys in and be fresh, I think you have a recipe for success. And it's no secret we're going to try to run the football, and we can keep those guys fresh, and we'll be good for the season.
All right, thank you, Steve. Our next questions come from Chris Vanini with The Athletic. Please go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Shawn, how's it going?
Great, Chris. How you doing, bud?
Good. What's it been like preparing for Charlotte, considering they were only recently added to the schedule? Obviously, you didn't have an off season to look at them. Or is it maybe not as hard because you did play them last year?
I think it helps. We played them last year, the last 2 years, and it's a team that we keep a close eye on just because it's so close. We spend a lot of time recruiting against those guys, and when we found where we played them, it was I just told our team that this is a great chance to put our program on a national stage against a national televised game on ESPN2 at noon on Saturday, and we went about our business. We started breaking them down and getting a game plan together, and we'll get that thing finalized this week and kick it off at noon here at the Rock.
And you mentioned, I mean, you guys have a number of ESPN2 games this year as a result of other people not playing. So is that something you talk to the guys about?
Without question. I think anytime you can put your program on a national stage, I think it's great for your program and for your university. And I think we're on national TV 5 times this year as of right now, and it's something we look forward to. We showcase our program, and it helps in recruiting, and our kids like it.
Appreciate it, Shawn.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And we got time for one more with Kyle Kinsing with Athlon Sports. Please go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, Coach, as you get ready for this first season here, I mean, how much do you reflect on your time with Jerry Moore, and how much sort of influence did playing for him have on, sort of developing you as a coach?
Yeah, I rely on Coach Moore a lot, to be honest with you. He still lives here in Boone, and there's several times throughout the week I'll call him and get suggestions. I'll bring him to practice and ask him questions what he would do. And again, he's a legend in college football, and he's a guy that there's a ton of respect for, and he has a great recipe for success. And over the last 30 years between him and Sat and myself, it's we've been in the program, we know the system, we know what works. And whenever I get a chance to call Coach and ask him questions, I do that.
And, reflecting on your time as a player versus, coming back to the program as a coach, where has the program grown the most in that, 20-year time?
Well, I think it starts from the top down, and our Chancellor Everett, has done a great job, and Doug Gill, our athletic director, he's put emphasis on athletics here in Boone. And, again, we want to be the very best in the Sun Belt, and that's our goal year in and year out. And over the last 5 years, we've done that. So, again, I can't say that about the program. I have a picture in my office from 1995. I was looking at the press box yesterday, and it's probably about a 4-office building in 95. And to see where it's gone now, I think it speaks volumes for our university.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Coach. That's all the time we have for you today. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for holding, everybody. We're now joined with Jamey Chadwell, the head coach of Coastal Carolina. If you have a question for Coach, please dial *1 on your phone at this time. Coach, thanks for joining us today. Would you mind starting us off with an opening statement?
I will. Thank you for the opportunity. So this has obviously been a very unique preseason, obviously, but we're glad to be in game week. We've had some ups and downs with dealing with a lot of the virus and some of those things, but I think we're heading into this week mostly healthy. Should have a full complement of players as we travel, out to Kansas there, and our guys are sort of relieved that you're at a game week. And we started, I guess, back in July, and it's been a long time coming. So everybody's always excited about this time of the year, but I think just what everybody had to go through to get to this point, I think there's more of an appreciation than anything about getting a chance to play football.
Thank you, Coach. As a reminder, our members of the media, *1 to get in the queue. First questions come from Chris Vanini with The Athletic.
Hey, Jamey, how's it going?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. What's the confidence level of the team right now? Obviously, a year ago, you guys got that win, and it was one of the big wins for the program. What's kind of the mood of your guys going into this game?
Well, I definitely think there's some confidence. I think there's also maybe a little apprehension because you're testing 3 times this week too. So I think we're all wanting to make sure you do take your team out there that's capable of winning for sure. So I know from a preparation standpoint, our guys believe we can go out there and win. We did that obviously last year. We know they're going to be much improved, but hopefully we're improved as well. So I know there's a confidence there. But also our guys realize, especially our older guys, realize all the things we've had to go through up to this point. And they know, we could, lose somebody today and through quarantine, whatever it may be. So there's until we get on that, I think that plane Friday, I think there's going to be a little apprehension, just of who's going out there with us.
Yeah. What's the, I guess, feeling about finally making it to game week? I know you guys obviously got spring football in, but been a lot of stuff going on. And is it a little bit of a relief, excitement to be here, or is it going to be every week, just holding your breath and hope you make it through?
I think every week you're probably going to hold your breath and hope, hey, with these testing, what happens and all those different things. But I think after seeing games, especially this week, you had the FCS Kickoff Classic, and then you saw some more teams play this week. I think what it did, at least for our team, is show it can be done. Hey, this can be done. Yes, you have to do certain things to make it happen, but it can be done. And I think so that gives, I want to say, a sigh of relief, guys, knowing, hey, we're doing the things that have allowed, we're following the same procedures that obviously our other Sun Belt schools are following, and they went out and competed well, this weekend. So I think from that standpoint, I think their guys is relieved a little bit. Hey, the things we're doing does work, but also, one person makes a bad decision and it affects some other ones, and you could definitely not have a full complement. So our older guys definitely understand that they're, hey, let's wait till we get on that plane and really kick it off to, hey, we're here.
I appreciate it, Jamey.
All right, thank you, Chris. Our next question is coming from Alan Blondin with the Sun News. Please go ahead, Alan.
Hey, good morning, Jamey.
Hey, Alan, good morning.
Yeah, there was a spike in coronaviruses on the campus, not quite what other places are experiencing, but at least for Coastal, it was a big jump. Has that impacted the team? Do you expect to lose more players based on the testing last week?
Yeah, we'll lose some. We will from the standpoint of and we're obviously we test today, we test Wednesday, we test Friday this week. That's our testing procedures this week. So we just got through testing this morning. And so I'm anxious to see, how we come out of that. We'll find out that tomorrow, coming through a weekend. But we will lose, probably two starters. Not two starters. Two guys that are role players will not be playing this week because of the past testing.
Okay. And secondly, and I'm sure we'll ask you this Wednesday as well, but have you settled on a starting quarterback for Saturday yet?
We have. We've not announced that publicly yet, and but we have settled on who that's going to be, and we'll practice that way this week, how that's going to be, and then we'll announce it later on. I don't know if I'll announce it Wednesday or not. We might let Kansas practice a little bit more practicing against everybody. Who knows? We'll see. See how we're feeling Wednesday, Alan. See what you bring me.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
All right, thank you, Alan. We have time for one more. Ronald Wallace with Ballin' Down South. Please go ahead, Ronald. Ronald, are you there?
Yeah, Coach, how you doing, Coach?
Hey, Ron, I'm doing well, buddy. Thank you.
Pretty good. Hey, you going up against Les Miles and the Jayhawks. You guys beat them last season, and I know they're only a 4-point favorite, according to the polls and everything going out there right now. But how do you think you guys are going to stand up against those guys this upcoming season, knowing that you beat them last season and basically starting all over from ground one because it's a new season?
Well, obviously you believe because you went out there and did it last year, but last year's not going to have any bearing on this year. They're a different team. We're going to be a different team. I think until you get out there and you see actually who you have, I don't know how you can put a line or anything on anything because of, you don't know what type of team you're going to be taking out there until Friday. And who knows, they might have a full complement or they might not have half their team. Nobody knows that right now. But I do know that our guys that are confident, hey, we can go out there and we can compete. We did that last year. We can compete, and if we'll play well, we'll have a chance to win the game. So I believe wholeheartedly, our guys believe that. But it's more so about can we handle all the things that we need to do leading up to it to put ourselves in the position to play. And so that's the $100,000, $64,000 question, I guess. Are we going to when we go out there, we're going to be able to take the full complement of guys that we need to have to win the game.
All right. Thank you, Ronald. And thank you, Coach. That's all the time we have for you today. We do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you for holding, everybody. We're now joined with Jake Spavital, the head coach of Texas State. If you have a question for Coach, please dial *1 on your phone at this time. Again, *1 to get in the queue. Coach, while we're waiting for that, would you mind starting us off with a opening statement?
Yeah. Kind of just going back over this past weekend, really proud of how, our university administration, our players, kind of handled all the situations going on leading up to this moment. Just all the new protocols and guidelines and just how we've been testing. I just applaud the guys for just buying into everything that's going on. They abided by everything and got the opportunity to play, college football in a national spotlight on Saturday. But, I think the kids played extremely hard. That's something that I take a lot of pride in. And I thought those kids battled as well as you possibly could. Again, we have a young team. We got a new team. We have over 54 new players on this current roster. And you could tell that we had some rookie moments out there. And that's tough to do in a game when you're playing a good team like SMU. But the good thing is that our kids recognize it, and there's a lot of learning opportunities, and we've challenged them this week to keep abiding by the protocols and principles and guidelines and make the corrections and, have an opportunity to go out and make strides from week 1 to week 2 this week going into play UTSA. And UTSA is going to be a good challenge for us. They are a rival team, new coach that I know well with Coach Traylor. And I think it's going to be a great challenge for us. But I think our kids are excited to get back out there again and try to rebuild from this past week. And hopefully we can put it together and get a win. So, question.
Thank you, Coach. Our first question comes from Dan McDonald with the Acadiana Advocate. Please go ahead, Dan.
Morning, Coach. The games that you played was the SMU game on your original schedule, or was that one that was an add later? And I know you wound up with just 10 games this year. How difficult was it to get games given all the circumstances?
Yeah, actually we're up to 12 games now. We ended up picking up BYU and Boston College after Ohio and New Mexico State dropped, but SMU was originally as the home opener, and that one kind of went back and forth. We bumped that game to week 0, and then we ended up pushing it back to September 5th, just for schedule flexibility, because I know SMU was looking to put, to pick up TCU, and TCU ended up dropping this week. But again, there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of moving parts when it comes to scheduling, and fortunately we ended up being able to pick up BYU and Boston College in these moments, which was kind of rare. Right now we have 12 games. You never know what's going to happen moving forward. It is extremely difficult to put together a schedule that actually flows, because everybody has different open weeks. These Power 5 conferences are all starting at different times. They all have different rules. Some are 1 non-conference game, some are 0 non-conference games, and you just got to adjust accordingly. But right now we've got 12, and I think we're pretty fired up to pick up BYU and Boston College.
One more question, Coach. With not being able to do everything that you wanted to do, I'm sure in the spring and the summer, how much did conditioning play a factor, not just with your team, but with games that you might have seen around the country?
Yeah, you can tell, you can strength and condition as much as you want. There's nothing really that can simulate in-game conditioning. Just playing shape. And you could tell in that first drive of the game with us, we ended up doing probably it was over a 10-play drive. Both sides of the ball were, they were exhausted, and you could tell that played a difference in our game all the way to the end of the game. We had a lot of guys with cramping issues, which we knew, played a lot of different bodies. We played 24 guys on defense, which is really unheard of. You normally play around 16 to 18, but we played 24 of them. you really have to emphasize playing a lot of different bodies right now, especially, due to COVID, due to the lack of preparation. You never know what's going to happen. I lost all my tight ends for this game. I didn't have an opportunity to have one of them out there. So I had to pull a defensive lineman over, and the defensive lineman was playing as a fullback for us, and then we ended up having issues with conditioning and cramping and injuries on the defensive line, so we had to move him back to defensive line. So there's a lot of moving parts to all this, but I think that, the more you're going to see this issue with every team in their opening games across the country until we can just keep playing and playing and playing, because you're going to have to play yourself into shape.
Who was the lineman that you moved over to tight end?
Jake Lynch.
Okay. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Our next questions come from Chris Vaney with The Athletic. Please go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Jake, kind of going on that, what are the availabilities you see right now for this week? The guys that had to miss the last game due to contact tracing and stuff, do you know yet if they'll be available?
Yeah, they'll be back. Haven't got the clearance yet, but they should be back today. I know there's a protocol and an acclimatization period just to make sure that they're in shape and they're ready to go. But it's just the times, that's probably one of the more frustrating things for these kids, and there's nothing that you really can do about it. They're all tested negative, they're all healthy, and they've just unfortunately been in contact with somebody that has had the virus, and they have to sit out 14 days. So that's kind of the more frustrating part with those kids is, they come to you and they try to tell you that we can test out. I can show you that I'm negative, they send you paperwork from like Med Expresses just saying like, hey, I've tested negative again, but there's really nothing you can do about it. And, it's just unfortunate, but the availability of those guys are going to be back this week. And I think they're excited too. I'm excited as well because, that allows us to do a little bit more, but again, we got 3 more COVID tests to pass this week. So I'll kind of relax once we pass that third one.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Jake.
Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Chris. And our next questions come from Kyle Kinsing with Athlon Sports. Please go ahead, Kyle. Oh, Kyle? Let's see here. If our operator could add Kyle back, that would be very helpful if he's still on the line with us. Kyle, I think your line is open.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So, yeah, Coach, kind of a big picture question, but, in terms of your coaching background, having worked with, Todd Graham and Dana Holgorsen, Mike Gundy, Kevin Sumlin, how much influence do you take from each of those tenures in kind of developing your own offense?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of offensive minds with, Gus Malzahn as a GA and Dana Holgorsen and Cliff Kingsbury and being around Mike Gundy and Kevin Sumlin. And, I think that I've been fortunate to be around a lot of, great offensive minds. And, throughout the course of time, you kind of get a mix of all of it. Gus Malzahn was more of the up-tempo, run the football, power counter, and Dana was more of the up-tempo spread. And I think just over the course of the years, you start kind of getting bits and pieces of everybody, because when we were running the up-tempo spread at an early time, no one knew how to defend it. Now everybody goes up against the spread offense, and they know how to defend it. So you're starting to see a mixture of everything that I've been a part of, and it's always been good reference for me based off of the style of plays and the style of quarterbacks and what they can and can't do. So there's a lot of, it's kind of a vague response, but there's a lot of moving parts with that. And I've just been fortunate to be around a lot of good offensive minds where I can piece it all together. And you look at the first game that we ran right there, versus SMU, I've got a lot of principles from Gus Malzahn in there, and I got a lot of principles from Dana Holgorsen and Cliff Kingsbury.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Coach. That's all the time we have for you today.
All right, appreciate it, Travis.
All right, and we are now joined with Chad Lunsford, the head coach of Georgia Southern. If you have a question for Coach, please dial *1 on your phone at this time. Again, *1 to get in the queue. Coach, thanks for joining us this morning. Would you mind starting us off with an opening statement? right, everyone can stand by here. We'll get Coach here. I think he's still muted. If our operators could unmute Chad Lunsford, please. All right, Coach, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you mind starting us off with the opening statement?
Yep, no problem. Hey, thank y'all for having us today. And, you know, man, what a crazy time in college football. What a crazy time in our world right now. And, you know, the opportunity to get out there on the field and, you know, get some semblance of normalcy is really awesome. But, you know, there's a lot of things that everybody in the country is battling between, you know, the virus and then contact tracing off the virus and racism and all the different things that are going on, man. But it's good to be back in that team atmosphere and getting closer to game time, and just very excited to finally play some football. So just really glad to get at it and can't wait to GATA.
All right, thank you, Coach. As a reminder, members of the media, star one to get in the queue. Our first questions come from Dan McDonald with the Acadiana Advocate. Please go ahead, Dan.
Morning, Coach. How much of your schedule, the schedule that you wound up with, was what you had or what you were anticipating back in March? And if it was changes, how difficult was that process for you?
Well, to be honest with you, the big changes were obviously we were fortunate enough to get 6 spring practices in, and then, you know, obviously it was shut down at that time. We were able to get most of our team back by July 1st, and, you know, obviously we got into the mandatory stuff around July 13th. But we had most of our guys back, and we were able to work with them just a little bit, and then we got into our you know, those 20-hour weeks. I believe that was around July 23rd or 24th, somewhere right in there. We were able to get those 10 days of walkthroughs with a ball and still working on the strength and conditioning. And then we went into our camp, and our camp was pretty much on schedule with what we had planned. We were really awesome the first few tests. You know, no positives at all. Once school started, what we started to have to battle a lot was contact tracing. And so right there, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we had to pause for a little bit. You know, our offensive line had, you know, basically all gone into quarantine. And then, you know, we've had a little bit of trouble with our DBs being in quarantine. And so we had to adjust off of that. You know, we were still able to practice, but our practices had to be a little bit different and had to be, you know, very mindful of what we could and couldn't do. So to answer your question, it was not normal till we got really back to the, you know, July. And then it went abnormal again with the contact tracing stuff started hitting us. So, but I think we're back into a routine now, and hopefully that'll show on Saturday.
How much of your non-conference schedule altered from what you were anticipating? And if you had to change, how difficult of a process was that?
Well, you know, we lost Boise State and we lost Ole Miss. To be honest with you, from what we had to deal with contact tracing and stuff, I'm actually kind of glad we didn't play on September 5th. I think we needed another week to get ready. Everything else stayed the same so far, and with Ole Miss dropping out, we picked up Army in that spot. So you know, we're proceeding along just like it was going to be. The only difference would be Army instead of Ole Miss.
Thank you, Coach.
No problem.
All right, thank you, Dan. And we have time for one more here with Nathan Dominitz with Savannah Morning News. Please go ahead, Nathan.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay, everyone?
Yep.
Oh, great. Okay, Coach, game week is finally here. Can you compare what game week feels like this week, considering all that's happened, to what a normal game week in Statesboro, a normal Monday going to the game week would be since all your years in Statesboro? What's different? What can you compare and feel differently, and what you see around you as well?
Well, I think there's several things. I think there is a energy that is very normal for a game week. You know, we finally got there. Is kind of how our guys are, man. Because I mean, it seems like it's been forever, and you know, there's a big time excitement on our football team. I do feel like there's a big time excitement with Eagle Nation. And I know that's going to look different with us only being able to have 25% capacity. But, shoot, man, we had some rain games last year where we didn't have as big a crowds as we normally do. And shoot, you still felt the power of Paulson. So I think that's still there. I think the thing that's missing a little bit is the interaction with the students. Hadn't been able to get out and, maybe go to fraternities, sororities out on campus and, try to drum up the student population, one, because of the number that can come to the game, and then two, just with the virus and stuff. So I think that's the big thing that's a little bit different there, but I do think there's a huge anticipation and energy for this first game.
Thank you so much, Nathan, and thank you, Coach. That's all the time we have for you today. I do appreciate it.
Okay, thank y'all, GATA.
Thank you, and apologies to those that were still in the queue there, but we just ran out of time. We are now joined with Blake Anderson, the head coach of Arkansas State. If you have a question for Coach Anderson, please dial *1 on your phone at this time. Again, *1 to get in the queue. Coach, thank you for joining us. Would you mind starting us off with an opening statement? All right, could our operator please take Blake Anderson off mute? Thank you. Coach, could you start us off with an opening statement?
Sure. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
I got you. Well, it was good to be out playing. There's no doubt with all the uncertainty of the season and leagues playing and those shutting down, to be able to get out and play and have a game on Saturday night was awesome. Disappointed with the result. Obviously, we wanted to play better. Did not play particularly well, and against a good football team, you're not going to win very often if you don't play your best ball. And just didn't feel like we played nearly our best ball. Played hard all the way through. Could have gotten a score right there with 1:50 left on the clock. Would have made it interesting down the stretch, but came up short. So a lot to learn from. It doesn't get any easier this week on our way to Kansas State, which was a late addition to the roster for us, having lost both Michigan and Howard due to those leagues shutting down. So it's been adjustment. It's going to be a huge challenge for us, but a great opportunity too if we can improve from week one and play better ball. I mean, love our chances to go and get a win for the league and a Power 5 win for our school. So we just got to continue to improve and get better. So we appreciate the way the guys have handled things. We've handled, I think, kind of the dynamic of COVID and protocol and all the things that are asked of them. I think they've handled it really, really well. Now we just got to concentrate on just playing better ball on a weekly basis. So any questions, you got to be happy to answer.
Thank you, Coach. First questions come from George with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, I feel like I'm going to have to ask this every week, but, how has testing gone since the first game? And now that you guys have played one game, does it feel any different than maybe your typical season?
Testing's gone fine. I mean, just the steps, guys are getting comfortable with it, and we really won't talk about positives and all that stuff as we go. That's just going to be something we're going to keep in the house. But in terms of the protocols and the steps and the schedule and just adding that to your regiment, guys have picked it up and done well. So, and I think they've done a great job with the safety steps throughout the course of the week, or you'd have seen, a lot of guys missing from the sideline, and you didn't see that. So, it's just the world we live in now, and they got to get comfortable with it. And this is a particular week where we'll test 3 times again this week due to Big 12 protocol. So they'll get their hands full this week. In terms of just how it feels and all that, I guess you kind of get to a point where that just becomes part of the regiment, and you just try to focus on getting better as a football team. And I think that's a challenge. The environment that you're playing in is different because there's only a handful of people in it, and that's unique. And it definitely is not something it's not something you want, but it's necessary. Definitely something we're going to have to get used to. But beyond that, I think they're kind of this is just kind of part of how you do things, and they know that, and the guys are handling it well.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you, George. Our next questions come from Luke Matheson with RedWolfReport.com. Please go ahead, Luke. Seems like we lost Luke there. We'll now go to Ronald with Ballin' Down South. Ronald, please go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Coach?
Good.
Just want to ask you about that quarterback you got, Lane Hatcher. I think Kansas State will definitely have their hands full with him this upcoming weekend. Talk a little bit about him and some of the other guys that's going to could be key prospects of the game.
Well, we're playing both quarterbacks and both played well. They split time. Logan Bonner and Lane both graded out almost the same, and we're both able to move the ball effectively. And with COVID being as prominent as it is and the possibility of injury, we just felt like both needed to stay fresh and continue to play at a high level, which they were doing going into the season. And I feel like both did a great job on Saturday. I mean, it's going to be a battle up front for us with the O-line and D-line that they have. It's going to start up front. We feel like we're skill-wise at the wideout position. We're going to run well with them, and we feel like that those matchups and we've got team speed. What is going to be the biggest challenge of this game and the key to the game is being able to control the fronts. And they lose some guys, which is to our benefit, but they also have recruited well and bring back some guys that can absolutely run up front, starting with the Hubert kid, the defensive end. I mean, it's going to be a challenge just to keep him away from the quarterback all day long. And so it's going to start and up front, and the big guys are going to set the tone on both sides.
All right, thank you, Ronald. Let's try to go back to Luke Matheson. Luke, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me this time?
Yep. Yeah, we got you.
All right. Hey, Blake, saw a lot of guys, even some that made critical mistakes Saturday night on Twitter, social media, talking about, hey, this is on me. We're going to own this. We're going to get better. Saw you retweet a lot of those guys. Just what does that do for a coach and a team when guys are doing that?
Well, you won't got. We talked a good bit during fall camp. We talk all the time about selfless, tough, and accountable, and we talked about extreme ownership of, man, when you make a mistake or when you don't, and it's going to happen. I mean, in the nature of the game, you're going to have mistakes. When you make a mistake, man, own it and learn from it and improve from it. And so we did not play particularly well. There were mistakes all over the field. A lot of guys out of inexperience, several guys, a guy like Justin Rice, he's frustrated. He didn't play great. He just got here about 5 minutes ago. Guys that had either come off injury or just playing their first, full-time minutes. And so you expect some mistakes. How you respond to the mistakes is what going to dictate about, how quickly we can improve and how good a team we can be. So I was really pleased with guys' ownership, really from at every position across the board. Had great meetings yesterday. Guys were critical and trying to see where we can get better and get better fast. And we're going to need to be because, K-State's going to be a huge, huge opponent for us to match up to, and we sure don't want to go out and make mistakes, the same ones we made a week ago, and not give ourselves a chance to compete.
Well, I know in past years.
I'm sorry, Luke. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Blake, in past years, I know there's been discussion about getting a push along the offensive line and being able to punch one in the end zone in the running game. You got that twice Saturday night.
Yeah, I was pleased with the run game. That was probably the most improved thing offensively. We had 3 turnovers. We had too many drops. A couple of those drops inside the 10-yard line that would have set us up for touchdowns and made much more of a game of it. But in terms of the bright side of the offense was the ability to run the ball against a good defensive front. So that's something we need to build on and see if we can't continue to improve. It will definitely open up things offensively if we run the ball effectively, each week.
All right, thank you, Luke, and thank you, Coach. That's all the time we have today. We do appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. We're now joined with Matt Viator, the head coach of ULM. If you have a question for Coach, please dial *1 on your phone at this time. Again, *1 to get in the queue. Coach, thanks for joining us today. Would you mind starting us off with an opening statement?
We're excited to get going and excited to have an opportunity to go to West Point on Saturday. It's been certainly an up-and-down camp, I think, to say the least. I thought we were going along pretty good and had a scrimmage, and we're moving, I think, in the right direction. And then we didn't do anything for 10 days, and nothing, literally. And with COVID and then with the hurricane, and that came through here and knocked out power for several days around here and stuff. So, but we got back going last Monday, tried to reacclimate, and then started moving back forward. And we just finished practicing this morning, and we felt like we had a pretty good practice. in terms of guys moving around and and attentive, and the excitement was certainly there too. It's going to be a tough challenge at Army. We had opportunity to play and DVR the game and then watched it on film there, and you could tell they've practiced a lot. I think that they executed very well on both sides of the football. They looked fast, and it's going to be a tough game. I thought they looked like they had really practiced a lot and stuff in the way they executed. And anytime you defend the option, it's a different thing. And certainly at this time of the year for us, it's a different thing. The quarterback's good. The quarterback's back. The guy they call their B-back, the fullback, is back. They have a new weapon this year, number 21, who's really fast. Kind of gives them, I think, another element there, to what they're doing offensively. Defensively, a lot of the same. They're aggressive, and they pretty much have some kind of stun or something on every play. So going to be a big challenge for us, but we're excited. I think to have the opportunity to play, number one, and get everybody back together and have something to work forward, something to work and look forward to. I think it's a positive thing.
Thank you, Coach. Our first questions come from Dan McDonald with the Acadiana Advocate. Please go ahead, Dan.
Morning, Matt.
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
I'm surviving. Your guys, obviously with the uncertainty and so forth, is depth going to be more important this year than maybe any other college football season any of us can remember?
Oh, I think no doubt. I think you're right. I heard Coach Anderson say something about it earlier and playing two quarterbacks, and we are too. And number one, we don't feel like we've gotten enough snaps, in fall camp to really separate guys. And then the second element of it is, you always have the possibility of injuries, but then you throw COVID in there as well. I mean, you definitely have to have multiple guys ready, to play week by week. And then I think this week for us, the conditioning factor, we're concerned about because really of the lack of a camp for us.
You talked about that conditioning and so forth, and I know first game, that's always an issue, cramps and so forth. Are you maybe even a little more concerned this year than in the past, considering what y'all have been through between COVID and then the hurricane coming through?
I mean, we're concerned. I think the bright side, you look at it both ways. We're playing against a really good team, and what they run offensively, I think will test your conditioning. But other than that, though, we looked at it. It looks like low to mid 70s, in West Point on Saturday. So hopefully that helps us, Dan.
Cool front coming through. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Good to hear from you, Dan.
All right. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Coach. That's all the questions we have for today. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. As a reminder, our members of the media, after Coach Napier of Louisiana, we will have Commissioner Keith Gill on the line as well. But we're now joined by Billy Napier, the head coach of Louisiana. If you have a question for Coach, please dial *1 on your phone at this time. Again, *1 to get in the queue. Coach, thank you very much for joining us today. Would you mind starting us off with the opening statement?
Well, I think the first thing is we're extremely excited about opening of the season. Certainly a little bit different feel in the air this week. I know lots of us were uncertain whether this was ever going to happen, but we're excited about the opportunity to compete, and certainly proud of our young men and the work that they put into getting prepared for this moment, even when maybe there was uncertainty. So very proud of the leadership on our football team. We have really been able to work without a pause at any moment or time outside of Coach Looney passing away and certainly the hurricane. But in general, I've been very impressed with the discipline and the commitment and loyalty of our team. We're on a pretty good streak here of staying healthy relative to COVID, and I think that's a good indicator of the culture we have within our locker room. So in general, we're ready to play and certainly have a ton of respect for our opponent this week. I think one of the more stable, consistent contenders out there. Been very impressed with Coach Campbell and his blueprint and how they go about playing football in all three phases and play good team ball, work well together. They play with really good effort. I think they're physically tough. I think they're very competitive. You look back at 4 very, very close losses last year, or they're right in the mix for the Big 12 championship. So lots of respect for our opponent. Certainly look forward to going up there and having an opportunity to compete against the Power 5 opponent. But, the more film I watch, the more I realize that this is a really sound operation with really good players, good speed, good length, and they've got a good understanding of who they are relative to their identity as a team. So, in general, we're excited to play and very thankful for all the tireless effort and work that went into our plan to get to this point. I think our university leadership, our president, our athletic director, and certainly all the local health professionals in conjunction with our athletic trainers. Pat Richards in particular on our staff is our head athletic trainer, who I think has been unbelievable in an unprecedented time. Him and his staff and their detail and thought process relative to the COVID-19 planning. We're certainly very thankful for Pat and his staff. But with that being said, it's time to play ball, and I'm sure y'all got lots of questions.
Thank you, Coach. As a reminder, members of our media, it's star 1 to get in the queue. Our first questions come from Dan McDonald with the Acadiana Advocate. Please go ahead, Dan.
Morning, Coach. From what you probably had a chance to see over the weekend and so forth, and given the uncertainty where the teams are going to have players week in and week out, is depth more important this year, not just for your team, but for all teams, I guess, across college football?
Well, I think you got to view COVID-19 as a potential injury, right? And one that may be kind of an invisible enemy to some degree. And I think you're asking a really good question, and I think that is subjective to each team. Our big challenge to our team is, their decisions away from the complex directly affect our ability to play winning football, have the full gamut of personnel available, and so far so good in that area. I do think those challenges will continue to be an issue, but I'm very proud of our team because we've had relatively no issues when it comes to this. We crossed that bridge back in the summertime, early in June. We kind of have developed a really good plan in terms of how we're operating. But I do think you're right. If you were to have injuries, and I think COVID-19 goes in that category, depth is always critical. And certainly it benefits us to have a veteran team being in our third year, and certainly having some young players that have had an opportunity to get up to speed throughout the summer. But I feel good about it going into the opener for sure.
One of the coaches earlier said you can do all the strength and conditioning you want, but you have to play a little bit to get into playing shape. Do you see that? Is that a concern with your group, considering you didn't get to do really as much as you wanted in the spring and summer?
Well, we may not have gotten as much work in the spring, but I feel really good about the amount of work we've been able to do in the summer during training camp. That mini camp period we had 2 weeks prior to training camp. When you start adding all these things up, we're playing in week 2 of the season. So the number of practices that we're actually going to get before the opener, combined with that mini camp experience, we've actually gotten in more work than we typically would in the past. So the big thing here is we had a deficit from the quarantine. We had to work our way through those issues the first 5 weeks of voluntary work. And then I think from that point forward, we've slowly gotten back into football condition. So the true test will be Saturday, right? There's going to be lots of things that maybe we think are okay that will get exposed. But that's part of it. It's always that way with an opener. There's always a lot of quality control, and certainly you got to go in the game with having adjustments in mind.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Our next questions come from Chris Vanini with The Athletic. Please go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Billy, how's it going?
Good, Chris. How about you, man?
Good. This game against Iowa State was put on the schedule basically a month ago. What's it been like trying to prepare on such short turnaround compared to having a typical off season where you can prepare?
Well, I think we tried to duplicate the same processes that we would have relative to all the opponents in our schedule. This has been a very fluid week-to-week type of working environment, and I think what we've done is we've just taken a lot of the processes that we have in place throughout the off season to get us more familiar with the opponent. We just, included that in our work as a staff and as a team. So I think in general, we've had a little bit of extra time, and we feel like we're familiar enough and certainly have done the same amount of work we would do for a typical team. Now, all the things you would have done back in the spring and the summer, maybe that work is spread out a little bit more. We just crammed for the test instead of maybe spreading out the work is the way I would say it.
Appreciate it, Billy.
All right, thank you, Chris. Our next questions come from Tim Buckley with the Daily Advertiser. Please go ahead, Tim.
Hey, Coach. Hey, I was wondering, what have they told you about what their plans are for, like, if they're going to be piping in canned noise or music, or is it just going to be nothing? And what are you guys doing to prepare for that atmosphere, whatever it ends up being?
Yeah, Tim, I think that's a great question, and I think that's one that I've actually been trying to get to the bottom of here the last couple of weeks, not only for our home environment, but also on the road, right? The last thing you want is to go into a stadium where there's no parameters about, when you can pump in crowd noise, when you can play music. So I think you're seeing the NFL come out with some very specific things, and I don't think it'll be long before the NCAA kind of regulates. It may be at the conference level, but I think in general, I think that's a great question, and it's something that I think is being resolved around the country as we speak. I don't have the answer, but I do think you're on to something there relative to what are the rules and guidelines for what can and can't be done during the game to simulate maybe that game day environment that you're talking about.
Gotcha. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Tim. And we have time for one more. We'll go with Ben Dizer with Cedar Rapids. Please go ahead, Ben.
Sure. Along the same lines as the last question, how do you make sure that your players are quote-unquote up for the game? Because there's not going to be fans in the stands. There's not going to be normal cheering. How do you prepare your team for that kind of environment?
Well, it's the ultimate test of your real purpose, the intangibles on your team. Certainly, I think for our team, we're excited about the opportunity and the challenge to play, what some people think is one of the front runners for the Big 12 Conference. This is an outstanding program that has a terrific track record. They've got really good players. They've got an outstanding leader in their head coach. I think more than anything for us, we're just excited to play against a really, really good football team. I think our staff has tremendous respect for their process and really not only the quality of football, but the caliber of men on their staff and on their team. So, I think it's more about the challenge for us than maybe the environment. So, but I think it's a great question, and I think that we don't know the answer to that until we get into that environment and really get a feel for what it's going to be like. So, for us, we'll do some crowd noise simulation on Thursdays like we always do, just to really vet our communication processes on both sides of the ball. But in general, this is an incredible football team from a really good league, and certainly one that we're excited about competing against.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Coach. We do appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. I know we're running a little bit long here, but we are now joined with the Commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, Commissioner Keith Gill. If you have a question for Commissioner Gill, please dial *1 on your phone at this time. Again, *1 to get in the queue. Keith, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Would you mind starting us off with an opening statement?
Great. Thanks so much, Travis. I appreciate it. So, one, thanks for everyone for joining us today. Certainly thank you for this time on a holiday weekend and a holiday here on Monday. We were really excited that we were able to get week one off, and, this has been certainly a lot of work and effort by everyone. So I do want to commend our COVID-19 advisory panel and the medical folks that have been advising us since March, the leadership of the Sun Belt CEOs and Sun Belt ADs in terms of, getting us to this point, and certainly, all of the coaching staffs and student athletes and universities that have allowed us to get 1 week under our belt. So this will be a week-to-week exercise. So kind of we'll do this, for week one, and then we'll try to see if we can repeat it 14 times. We certainly know that there's going to be some disruption and there's going to be some challenges along the way, but we feel like we've got a good plan that our medical folks kind of put together for us, and so we certainly are going to try to execute that and make sure that we continue to be safe in the way that we return to sport and return to activity. And the minute we can't do it in a safe way, then we'll certainly pull the plug and not do it anymore. So, but we're just excited that we got 1 week under our belt, and we'll look forward to a really packed week two, a lot of exciting games, and a lot of good opportunities for Sun Belt teams.
Thank you, Commissioner. As a reminder to our members of the media, to *1 to get in the queue to ask questions. Our first questions come from Dan McDonald with the Acadiana Advocate. Dan, please go ahead.
Good morning. Commissioner, how much, with all the teams that had to do a lot of scheduling on the fly, how much was the conference office involved as far as trying to aid schools just trying to find games?
Yeah, so, I'll give a shout out to Travis on that. So he was certainly running point for us in the conference office trying to help schools find games. But, really the schools did a great job on their own in terms of figuring out what their fits were, trying to understand how many home games they needed, and getting on the phone and just doing some old-fashioned dialing for games. And so, our teams did a really good job. We kind of worked trying to help our schools figure out what was going to be our scheduling philosophy, kind of as a conference. And once that was determined, then the schools kind of took the lead on finding the games, and Travis certainly helped them as best they could in terms of letting our folks know who had openings and what kind of games they were looking for, and then our schools kind of took the lead on filling their schedules.
Is this whole year going to be kind of a hold your breath each week, especially when you start playing a lot of conference games that you really can't afford to have a lot of them go by the wayside, but obviously there are going to be some uncertainties.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be some disruptions. So, I would not sit here to say, there won't be. So, yeah, I think week to week, it's going to be important that we, get a sense of who the testing and what happens and what those results are from all the tests we're going to do week to week. And then see, if we have to make any adjustments because of that. So I do think it will be a waiting game, and we'll just have to see each week whether or not, we'll be able to have a full slate participate. Hopefully that will happen more often than not. But I certainly think, the road is not going to be smooth from here to December. It'll certainly be bumpy, and there'll be some disruption.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Dan. Our next questions come from Alan Blonin with the Sun News. Please go ahead, Alan.
Yes, sir. Just who were the main voices involved with the decision to play this season in the fall, and how close do you think you guys came to not playing and making the decision to move to the spring or something?
Yeah, I think obviously everyone our entire membership was kind of involved in that process. So, we engaged our coaches regularly. We talked to our ADs. Obviously, the CEOs and the ADs kind of made, the final decision in that regard. So I don't know that there's any single person that you can point to. They took the advice of our medical folks and kind of been trying to follow that advice. So pretty straightforward there. I think in terms of how close we were to not playing, I just think that this had been so uncertain, such an uncertain kind of progression and environment. I can't really put how close or not close we were, but I would just say in light of everything that's going on in the country, the not playing was always an option there on the table, man. It still is, and once, like I said, once things get to a point where our medical folks don't think it's safe, then we'll certainly shut it down and we won't play. So I think that was always an option to not play, and it still is. But we're going to try to move forward. We've got a plan. We feel comfortable with our plan, and so as long as the conditions can remain in a safe place, then we'll keep moving ahead.
I had one other one, if I could. So there are already a few teams anyway that are playing on December 5th. What's the status of the championship game, and have you already moved that date, or is it just flexible at this point?
Yeah, so we have not officially moved the championship game yet. It really is just flexible, so we can play it either the 5th, the 12th, or the 19th of December. And so we'll kind of keep monitoring it, and certainly if we do make a definitive decision to take any one of those dates off the table, we'll certainly make a public announcement. But right now, we're just trying to keep maximum flexibility. So, we have all three of those dates open, the 5th, the 12th, and the 19th for a potential Sun Belt football championship game.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alan. And we have time for one more. This is from Ronald Wallace with Ballin' Down South. Please go ahead, Ronald.
How's it going, Commissioner?
It's going great. How are you?
Pretty good. I know we're talking about football right about now, and congratulations to you, your staff, and the whole Sun Belt Conference to be able to get football at least this season. But basketball, I'm down here in the Mobile, Alabama, down here by the Pensacola area. Definitely want to see that basketball championship come down this way. Have you guys already been in talks about the basketball season for the Sun Belt at all?
Yeah, we certainly have been in talks about basketball, and so certainly we are, excited about our championship being in Pensacola, and they're kind of moving forward with that as kind of a destination. So we'll take some of our cues from the NCAA. Right now, the Final Four in the NCAA men's basketball tournament is, going to remain in place where it is. So that means our championship will certainly kind of keep its current dates, and we're working through right now options for the season. So, yeah, now that we've kind of gotten the fall started, we have pivoted to our winter sports, and basketball is an important part of that. But right now, we're just as excited as you are about the opportunity for our championship to be in Pensacola, and that is secure and solid and right there. And as long as the NCAA tournament stays on its current dates, then I would anticipate then we won't be moving our championship either.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Ronald. And thank you, Keith, for joining us today. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Travis. So I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for taking your Labor Day to visit with us today. So thanks so much.
Thank you. And that will conclude this week's teleconference. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. A copy of this will be posted on sunbeltsports.org later today. Again, thank you for joining us. We hope everyone has a great week and safe travels as well for those of you on the road. Thank you.